Since the early 2000s, a strange and brutal story has circulated amongst U.S. military personnel who served in Afghanistan. This is the disturbing account of the Kandahar Giant. In 2002, an Army infantry unit were on patrol in the Kandahar mountain range when they seemingly vanished. It was procedure to radio to base if there was any engagement with an enemy, or even if an enemy was spotted, but in this instance, there was complete radio silence, and the soldiers never returned. The Army superiors were extremely concerned about this, and quickly made a decision to send their most elite unit, the Green Berets, to go to where the missing soldiers were last known to be, and bring them back. Sparing no time, the Green Berets were loaded into a helicopter and dropped off around 4 kilometers from the last known location of the missing unit. They began up the mountains and had to stay very alert, as this was enemy territory, and the Kandahar mountain range contains very complex cave systems, where the enemy were known to hide and occasionally ambush. This was a dangerous mission, but the Berets used their training as they negotiated their way deeper into the mountain range. For the first few days, nothing happened. The soldiers were looking for any sign of a struggle or ambush of the missing unit, but there was nothing out of the ordinary, and there was certainly no sign of the enemy. At some point, they came to the start of a well-developed goat trail that went up the side of the mountain. The team decided to follow the trail, still keeping in a tight formation, but after a few hours, the trail led into an isolated plateau, and they saw something that made them stop. Scattered around were pieces of American military equipment. At first, they saw broken radios and backpacks, but as they progressed, they began to find pieces of uniforms, and the patches matched those of the missing Army unit. Further up the trail, the Berets found more equipment, and also bone. They didn't know if it was human or animal, but there were large pieces of bone scattered everywhere. To them, this looked like an ambush, and the Green Berets took defensive positions and moved slowly, checking every possible hiding place for the enemy. As they turned a corner, they saw several large cave entrances, and scattered outside was even more equipment and broken bone. It was very obvious here that these were pieces of the lost soldiers. Several of the Berets ventured slightly into the largest cave, but there was a drop so deep that they couldn't see to the bottom. The men pulled back and set up defensive positions, aiming their weapons at the cave entrances. They were about to shout out a warning to whoever was in there, when a few of the Berets saw something large moving inside. From out of the dark, a large spear was launched with incredible speed and impaled one of the soldiers. Before the Green Berets had time to react or even acknowledge what had happened, a thunderous war cry came from the cave and out ran a 12 to 15 foot tall humanoid being. It had long red hair down past its shoulders, a thick beard, light blue skin, and it charged through the soldiers to pull the spear out of the deceased man. The unit opened fire on this creature, and it reportedly took around 30 seconds to take it down. As the dust settled, the Green Berets took a few moments to gather their composure and try to make sense of what had just happened. The radio operator radioed to headquarters and said that they had a man down, and that they were attacked by a large humanoid creature, which was also down. The Army sent 2 helicopters, one for the Green Berets, and the other was for the creature. It weighed over 1,100 pounds, and it had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. The helicopter team struggled to fix netting around it, but eventually it was hoisted up and flown to a nearby airbase, where it was loaded onto a C-130 and taken to a secret location. The Green Berets traveled back to base and were told to fill out an after-action report about the incident. They decided to just recount exactly what had happened, but after submitting their reports, the leadership said that they were unacceptable and they were made to do them again, highly encouraged to make the incident seem like a typical encounter with the enemy in the mountains. The case was deemed top secret, and the Green Berets were made to sign non-disclosure agreements. As for the Kandahar Giant, nobody really knows where it was taken or for what purpose. If all the information surrounding the Kandahar Giant was classified, then you might be wondering how the story got out at all. In 2016, a whistleblower came forward in an interview for a documentary series focused on supernatural and hidden military events. He presented himself as a former U.S. military operative, suggesting that he had first-hand knowledge of a classified event in Afghanistan. What made his testimony compelling was his detailed and confident manner of speaking. He described military protocols, the nature of classified operations, and the way information was suppressed within the ranks. His tone suggested that he was deeply frustrated by the secrecy surrounding the event. He insisted that the encounter had been intentionally covered up by the government and that those involved were warned never to speak about it. Skeptics questioned the lack of concrete evidence. The whistleblower provided no physical proof, documents, or names of other witnesses. His anonymity also made it impossible to verify his military background. Some believed he was telling the truth but feared for his safety, while others dismissed him as part of a hoax or exaggeration. Regardless, his testimony reignited interest in the Kandahar giant legend, keeping the mystery alive. For centuries, the people of Afghanistan have shared stories about mysterious giants living in the mountains. These legends have been passed down through generations, often told by elders who claim to have heard them from their ancestors. The rugged peaks of the Hindu Kush and the remote valleys of the country have long been believed to hide ancient secrets, including creatures far larger than any normal human. Many Afghan villagers, particularly in isolated areas, speak of massive human-like beings that roam the mountains at night. These giants are often described as having incredible strength, red or brown hair, and deep, echoing voices. Some tales warn travelers to avoid certain caves and cliffs, as those who venture too close may never return. Others suggest that these beings live in hidden mountain fortresses, only appearing when food is scarce or when they feel threatened by humans. One common story tells of shepherds who have encountered giant footprints near their grazing fields, far too large for any normal person. Another tale speaks of a hunter who once saw a massive humanoid watching him from a cliffside, vanishing into the mist before he could react. Some believe these creatures could be ancient beings, possibly linked to the biblical Nephilim or other mythological giants. While there is no scientific proof of their existence, the persistence of these stories suggests that, at the very least, the idea of giants remains deeply rooted in Afghan folklore. Do you believe in the Kandahar giant? Or do you think it is a hoax? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time for more urban legends.